Okay, good morning. So, like yesterday, we'll dedicate today's class, considering that today's Levi for maybe I'm missing a name. Sigal Batsara and Yarom. Am I missing a name? Is there a middle name that I'm missing? Um, I don't think so. I think it's Sigal Bat Sarah and Yarom. And the Shamash have a smooth and easy transition, and her family should get whatever measure of comfort they can possibly get at this time, along with the rest of the community. And this time of learning will be dedicated to that. So we're in the middle of Siman Kuf Ayin Ches, chapter 178 of the Alter Shulchan Aruch. The Siman began, the chapter began with the premise that moving location constitutes end of an eating session and therefore requires a new bracha in a new place. And we started to qualify as to when that applies. And what's relevant for now is that law only applies to kinds of foods that the after bracha is buried in nefashos, meaning the halacha doesn't require you to come back to your spot to do the after blessing, and therefore walking away constitutes the end of the meal. If you're eating the kinds of things that the halacha calls you back, so you're benching or you're making alamichya, then your meal isn't over. Because the halacha still anchors you to your original place. So even if you eat in a new location, no new bracha. Now, yesterday we got into, well, what happens to the fact that you have to be actually benching in the place where you ate? So what do? The halacha then is you actually have to bench in the new location where you finished eating. This is at least according to this opinion. We're going to see more opinions later. And I should have qualified that yesterday. There's going to be more opinions coming. But at least in this opinion, you bench, you make the after blessing in the place where you finished eating in the second location. So this is a strange phenomenon. What's the reason why you're not making a first bracha is because that halacha tells you to come back to bench in your spot. But you're not actually benching in your spot. You're actually benching in the other place. So the Alter explained that in the first instance, actually, before you leave your spot, you should bench and make a new bracha in the new place and start again. Wash and make a motzi again. And don't worry about extra brachas because the halacha tells you every meal item of bread is significant enough that you have to bench in your spot. And when you go to a new place, wash and bench and wash al motzi and bench again. If you didn't and you violated that and you didn't bench in your spot, okay, then you don't have to make a new bracha when you go there and you can bench at the end. But to begin with, you should have benched in your spot. If, however, when you made hamotzi, you knew you were going, then there's no problem. Because to begin with, your meal extends. The example is like the person who's traveling. To begin with, when he picks up his sandwich and makes hamotzi in this room right here, he's hopping into a car with his sandwich. So he doesn't have to bench before he leaves the room and then wash again in his car. He just keeps on going and benches when he finishes eating. If he had in mind when he did the hamotzi.
It's funny that it mentions that you should do it where you finished eating, because it's obvious.
We're going to see opinion actually that says you have to go back. We're going to see.
But if, for example, you can't go back and you're done eating somewhere,
you have no choice. You have no choice.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to see because we're going to see. There's other opinions, but for now, this is the way it is. You bench in the other place. It is obvious you bench at the end of the other place. The problem is that the reason why you're not making hamotzi again is because you're anchored to the original place because you have to go back, but you're not actually going back.
Right. So right. You don't have to do the beginning bracha.
No. Right, which is a funny thing. But why aren't? That's right.
That's what it means to anchor.
Exactly. Why aren't you making a new bracha hamotzi when you go to the other room? Because the halacha says go back to your spot and bench. But then the halacha says, oh, by the way, bench in the other room where you finished. Wait, isn't the reason why I didn't make hamotzi because I'm supposed to come back?
But is it because?
But no, you're not coming back. Which is such a funny thing. Which is why it's like, to begin with, you shouldn't leave because you're supposed to bench in your spot. And because to begin with, you shouldn't leave, if you violated that and did leave, your meal's not over.
Exactly.
And if when you bench in the end of the other spot. That's it's a funny twist of two different principles that collide in one moment.
But it's not so much about that your meal, it's because you're anchored, then you don't do hamotzi again, for example, somewhere else. It's more because your meal's not over, so you don't have to do it.
But why isn't your meal over? Because the halacha says bench in your spot, even though you're not actually benching in your spot. It's because you should have benched in your spot. Okay. So it's a funny thing. And therefore, if you had in mind when you made hamotzi that you're going to move, no problem. Your meal isn't over. You're allowed to get up and leave and bench somewhere else because you knew to begin with you're going to be moving. Even a different building, by the way, at least according to this opinion, even a different building.
If you didn't realize why leaving,
then you should bench before you leave in the first instance. And if you didn't, no hamotzi in the new place. No hamoitzi.
No homo.
Right, because you're still anchored.
Right.
And therefore bench in the new spot, even though you shouldn't have.
Israeli should listen to me before they made the joke about Asav Ramon. That's the big what happened to go afterwards. And Asav Ramon was in space. They were saying Shabbos Min Tamarav all the time, which is not the case at all. Because all you have to do is,
Yeah. By the way, the story with Alam Ramon, there actually is teshuvas about it.
Yeah.
There were special teshuvas written
Yeah.
for his case, what he should do, and maybe one day we'll go through it. It's very fascinating.
Very interesting.
It actually has practical applications as well
It is, exactly.
for
Shabbat was an hour
people
and a half.
traveling and the time that you're flying to Australia and the time zones change as you're going. When do you daven shachris? When do you daven ma'ariv? There's actually relevant halachas even to people who are not flying
think
to
he
space.
did,
Maybe one day we'll go through that shuvah.
He did Shabbat in there, and it was an hour and a half.
So the halacha at the end was, if I remember correctly, we'll look it up. We'll do it one day maybe. If I remember correctly, the halacha was he actually follows the time of the place he left.
Mhm.
So even though
really?
the sun's rising and setting, he's like in a time capsule that's attached to Florida, which is where he took off from, right? Took off from
Okay.
South Florida. So that he would follow the Florida time zone.
I had to do
There's
that
relevant halachas like this also in other places where we'll get into it. This
in a calendar, for example, where it's in the wintertime. You have 18 hours of either summer or
that's
18
right. There are
hours
some
of-
opinions that say you follow the nearest yishuv of Yudim.
Exactly.
Okay, what the halacha means and why you do that, but maybe we'll look at this shuvas another time. It could be an interesting class, yeah. What to do when you're flying in outer space. Okay, when Elon Musk makes it available to everybody and we all start flying on vacation to the moon, there's no when to daven shachris, masif, and mincha and ma'ariv and keep Shabbos. Okay,
So like you fell and booth on the moon?
absolutely. Chabad will be there before McDonald's, right? All right. So this is where we are. Any other details we have to know before we go forward? I think this is the main idea. So halacha hey. The chol zeh, I see it's a little bit, the print is a little messed up on hey, but Vav will come back to good printing, I think. I don't know why it got messed up.
Just the first few lines. Right?
Okay. So v'chol zeh, all of this, see, it's a very funny, this whole chapter is structured very funny. Like he opens up with this blanket statement, if you move location, new bracha, and then says, well, no, it's only if it's this. And then he says, well, no, it's only if it's this. Well, no, if it's only if it's this. And he keeps on like limiting it. Then he introduces soon a new opinion and then does the same thing again. So let's see. The chol zeh, all of this, we're having all of this, what? When he says that you go to a new place, you don't have to make a new bracha, and you bench in the new location, even though you shouldn't have. When you go to the second location, to the second home, second house, lechol sham to eat there. But if you don't go to eat there, you're not going to eat there. Even though I had in mind to go there, so I washed. I had a motzi here, and I knew I was going to my friend's house afterward when I made a motzi. But I'm not necessarily going to eat there. I'm just going to say hello. So then I cannot bench there. Because the whole permissibility to bench in the new location, in other words, like this, you have to bench in the spot that you ate. To begin with, it should be in the spot where you began eating. You violated that and you went to a new place. Okay, so then bench in the place where you concluded eating. But if you didn't eat in the new location, you can't bench there. So in that case, it's forbidden to leave his spot until he benches, even if he knew he was going. So if I want to bench in a new spot, I have to actually eat there.
You have to bring your food.
Or have something there, or eat some bread there. Even if I left some people behind. Right?
It's the same as being anchored.
But nonetheless, but I have to, so my meal didn't end, which means if I go to the new spot, I don't have to make hamotzi again. But nonetheless, I still have to fulfill the halacha, which says bench in the place where you eat. So either eat there and bench there, or come back to the original spot and bench there. You cannot bench there when you didn't eat anything, just because we gave you the leniency to allow your meal to extend to a different location when you have in mind. It's right, because you still have to bench in the spot where you eat, either in the new spot you ate or in the original spot you ate, but you have to bench in the place where you eat. Clear?
Just didn't understand the part about having to have somebody there.
So even if I left someone behind, it doesn't change the fact. And so I left someone behind in the original spot, which means I'm still anchored to my original spot.
You're anchored
That's
to-
fine, but I cannot bench there just because I'm anchored to the spot. If I ate there, then I can bench there. Right?
Does that matter whether or not there was somebody here anchoring you?
It doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't make a difference.
Because I still, in other words,
I'm not
there's
sure
two
why.
separate there's two separate issues here. One is I don't make a new bracha hamaitzi before I eat because I'm still anchored to my meal.
Yeah.
That's issue one. And issue two is I have to bench in the spot where I eat.
Yeah.
So one is about the bracha which begins what he calls the bracha lechatchila, the bracha before I eat. That is taken care of by the fact that I'm anchored to my original meal. But then there's another issue, which is I have to bench in the place where I eat. The after blessing has to be done in the place where I eat. Now, which place is that?
Right.
Which one? I ate in two places. Well, in the last spot, right? But if I didn't eat in that last spot, then I have to go back to the original spot. Or don't leave your original spot until you bench, unless you're going to eat hamaitzi there. So when I say that you're allowed to bench in the new place, if you had in mind that hamaitzi that you're going to be eating in another place, is if you actually eat in that other place. And that way you actually benched in a place where you ate. Right? So even if I left people behind here, that helps with regard to the bracha before I make before that helps that I don't need to make a new hamaitzi. But the fact that I left people behind doesn't help for the fact that I have to bench in the place where I eat. And therefore, Gzeda, we're concerned, if I walked away, I might forget and not come back to bench. And therefore I should bench before I leave.
Is the
You have it clear?
No, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
is the beginning bracha help when leaving somebody behind if it's for snapping? Not.
We'll get to that, yeah.
not-
Yeah, absolutely, that for sure. We covered that already.
Not for
Not for hamaitzi, because hamaitzi you don't need it.
Right. So we,
But if we all sat around to have for bringing in, right?
right.
And there's
Because it
no- and
seems
there's
like
no-
in this context it seemed like we were talking about hamaitzi.
Here we're talking about hamaitzi, yes.
So when you brought up the fact of leaving someone behind, I think it
He's saying an
switched-
even.
switch to snacking.
No, it didn't. He's saying an even though you left people behind, which is another reason to anchor you to original
Oh,
meal.
reason why-
Even though you have an extra reason to be anchored to your original meal, you still have to bench in that place where you eat. So either in the new place, but if you didn't eat in the new place, then you have to bench before you walk away.
Okay.
Because we're concerned you might forget and not come back. So if you came back, bench in the spot where you came back from. But to begin with, you shouldn't walk away. So
Right, no, it makes
let's
sense.
put it this
Now
way:
I see
we all ate here hamaitzi, right? So I tell the guys, give me 2 minutes. I want to go next door and say hello, and I'm going to come back and bench. What I should do is bench and then walk away, because when I walk away, I might forget to come back.
Unless you have the intention of
Unless I have the intention of eating there, and then I eat there and bench there. That's what it says here. This is not so when he actually eats in the other place. He can bench then in the place where he concludes his meal, the new location. If he forgets to come back. We're only concerned with someone walking away from the spot where he ate, without benching, without the after bracha. If he didn't have in mind to come back, and he didn't have intent to begin with to eat in a new place. But if he had in mind to eat in a new place, or if he's definitely coming back, then he's benching in the other place, and he had in mind, so no problem. Or he's coming back and he's benching in the place where he ate, and it's also no problem. The only problem is when you thought you're going to eat your entire meal here, and now you walk away somewhere else. In that instance, you should have benched before you left. You didn't. You're still anchored to your original meal. No hamaitzi, and bench there when you're done.
After the fact, it's still okay. Even if you didn't have intent to be.
That was the chiddush we did yesterday, right? This like, you should have stayed in your spot to bench, but because you didn't, and because you should have benched, therefore you don't make a hamaitzi in the other place. Right?
This is all
Because you violated what you should have done. That's why you don't have to make a hamaitzi.
this is all building to building.
This is
right?
even house to house, and even down the block.
Yeah, like
Correct. We're going to get to the time lapse soon. How long elapsed? How much time elapsed between these two locations? But within the time lapse,
within a building, you don't have that problem.
so within a building, we learned that
Room to room, I think. you
room
don't
to
have
room, if you knew you were going to be walking around, it's not a problem.
No, even if you didn't know. If you did, we did mutzi here, and then
Um,
5 minutes later, we're like, you know what? It's nice outside. Let's just go eat outside.
If you see the original place, then it's fine, right? There's
You
no
have
reason.
to have intent though.
That was for things that you don't have to watch for. That was for shahakal, for other things, for
and it's also
fashists.
building to
We're in a
building,
fascist,
no,
right.
not room to room.
Right.
Here is even building to building, yeah. Here's even house to house, bias to bias, from one house to another. Okay, let's go forward. Both. Now, again, we're going to qualify, yeah? Sorry?
Take care.
Okay, we'll see you soon. Now, all of this where we say that you're going from one location to another, and we allow you, no, and we tell you that you have to bench before you leave, is when you're going to attend to personal matters. Or even if the reason you're leaving the meal is for a mitzvah, but it's not the kind of mitzvah that's you're going to miss the opportunity. There are some mitzvahs that if you don't do them now, you lost the opportunity. You can explain in a second, for example. But it's a mitzvah he's doing. Right? He's going to, I don't know, what would be an example?
One that's urgent or not urgent?
Not urgent. He's going to give tzedakah. You can give tzedakah in an hour. It's not going to change anything.
Urgent, no?
What?
Tzedakah is urgent.
So if the guy's standing there, then it is. Right? But if it's not, then you can do it in an hour. Maybe tzedakah is not a good example.
No, but I get what you mean.
Yeah. It's not, the mitzvah will still be available in a half an hour.
Right. It's not like saving someone's life.
Exactly. It's an extreme example. Okay, but if it's the kind of mitzvah that's passing by, and if you don't take the opportunity now, it's going to be missed. Going, for example, likras chasan, to go greet the chasan, or likras kala, or to greet a kala. I think I mentioned this before, that back in the day, the chasan kala was paraded through town to their chuppah. And that was the mitzvah, to greet them, to show like the communal support. Everybody came out of their houses and greeted the chasan kala as they went to the wedding. So if I don't come out now, I miss it. Or I got to run to shul to daven with the minyan. Because once the minyan's over, the minyan's over. It's not as if there's 10 minyanim in town. In my village, there's one. If I miss it, I miss it. Now, then, mutter leilech, he's allowed to leave. And bench when he comes back. So we said before that before you leave, bench, because we're afraid you're going to forget to come back. If you're eating in the new location and you had in mind, okay, you're eating in the new location, you had in mind, you're going to bench in the new location. But if I didn't have in mind, and I'm not eating in the second location, we just told you, stay in your spot, bench, then go, because you might forget to come back. So says the Alter Rebbe, if what you're going for is a mitzvah, then go do the mitzvah and come back and bench. Even if no one's left behind at the table. So everybody went out to go greet the chasan kala. There's no one left at the table. Because what you're going for is a mitzvah. Go do the mitzvah and try to remember to come back. We cannot let you pass by the opportunity to do a mitzvah. The opportunity is not returning because maybe you're going to forget. Don't forget. Remember to come back. So go, which is interesting. The Alter is telling us that you can go daven with a minyan and come back a bench. Interesting. So you're interrupting your meal with a full-on davening. Let's just say it's not shachar, so it's not so long. It's mincha, it's a shorter davening. But you can do that. You're leaving the building. You leave your house, you're living on Cleve. You leave your house, you run to PC, daven mincha, go back home, and bench. Because you have that window to get the minyan. Even if you're going from one building to another in the middle of the meal, and you're going to do the benching, the after bracha, in the second place. And I did not expect to do so. So when I sat down for my meal on Cleve Road, I was not expecting to leave my house until I'm done. They called me, they need me for the minyan. So I'm running out. And I'm going to bench in MTC, not in my house. I'm allowed to, if it's the kind of mitzvah that if I don't take it, I'm going to lose the opportunity.
So when you bench here, you don't even need to eat here.
That's right, because it's a mitzvah. It's pretty something. And he gives an example. Going, for example, levarich sham b'zimun. If I go to the new place, I can get a zimun. So I ate at home alone, no zimun. But if I run across the street, I can bench the zimun. Do it. even though I'm not benching in the spot where I ate,
even though you're not eating there.
even though I'm not eating there. It's quite something.
And here there's no intention, no nothing.
No, nothing.
You didn't have
That's
to
right.
intend, you
Exception.
didn't-
It's an exception for that. Let's see the English. Make sure we
to
got it
make
right.
a mitzvah. Not lose out
That's
on a
right.
mitzvah.
And you're helping other people.
What? Yes, that's right. Or well, you could be helping other people, or maybe not. Maybe there's 10 people there already.
But if there's not.
If they're that, certainly. But here, even if not, because you
Yeah.
now he's going to add to this point. But AFP, even though shalakar koydem birchas hamazon, when a person is leaving his spot before benching, shaloyal dait das lachs levakoyim levarech, when he has no intention of coming back to bench, as in this case, because I'm actually getting up to bench in the other spot. In that case, it's not simply I might forget. I might forget to come back. I have no intention of coming back. Right? Because one thing is we tell you don't go say hello to your friend next door until you bench first, because you might forget to come back. Here, there's no issue of you might forget to come back. You're actually benching in the other spot. There's no intention to come back at all. Now, in that case, why am I not allowed to get up and go? Not because I might forget. It's a straight out rabbinic prohibition. Don't leave your spot until you bench. And yet we're lifting that prohibition for the sake of fulfillment of a mitzvah. Right? And the rule generally is as a rule, one does not violate even the most lenient rabbinic command for the sake of fulfilling a mitzvah, even if the opportunity is not going to come back. Because he has in mind, because he's going to eat in the other spot. So you're right, we're wrong. You have to actually eat in the other spot.
Oh.
Because you're going to eat in the other place and bench in the other place, ain isur borer. It's not an outright prohibition. Because again, we have this idea that your meal is that you're anchored to your meal, and because you're anchored to your meal, you don't have to make a bracha on moitzi when you go to the new place, even though you should bench in the new place. But we say you're allowed to bench in the other place because at least you're benching in the spot where you conclude your meal, and because the reason you're concluding your meal in the other place is for a mitzvah, we allow it.
But we're missing something because this is just same as the other one. If you're eating there, then you're allowed to bench there. Whether you
Well,
did it, whether it
we
was
said
for a
before that
mitzvah
in the
or
first instance you shouldn't leave. You're supposed to
not.
bench
So
in your
here's
spot.
telling you
Here you're saying
should
you're allowed
leave.
to
You
because
should
you're going to
leave
be
and
doing a
don't do
mitzvah.
it there.
That's correct. Because you're doing a mitzvah. And therefore, yesh leimar, we can say, she'ein zo akira. It's not really, you're not really abandoning your meal because you're doing it for the sake of the mitzvah of augmenting your meal, augmenting your benching with a zimun. And what's the proof that he hasn't really left his meal? Is because when you go and eat in the second place, you don't have to make hamotzi. That we already established at the beginning. Because when he goes to the new place and eats again, he's eating as an extension and conclusion of his first meal. It's considered one long meal that extended to two places. As we explained, which means like this. If I have in mind to begin with, when I make hamotzi and I'm going to a new place, certainly it's one long meal and I can bench in the new place. No problem. If I didn't have in mind to begin with that I'm going to move to the new place, then I shouldn't go to another place. I should bench first and then make hamotzi in the new place again. If I violated that and went to the other place, no hamotzi. If I violated that because I want to bench with a zimun in the new place, then you don't have to be worried about it. For sure, get up, go, don't make hamotzi, eat bread, conclude your meal, bench with a zimun. Okay. Okay, so let's, actually, even though we're in the middle of a sif, we're going to stop over here because now the Alter Rebbe is going to introduce another opinion which disagrees with this. And then we're going to be introducing more different disagreements. That's all God willing coming on Monday. But so far we got some very interesting ideas that for the sake of a mitzvah, we say we're not worried you're going to forget. You can leave your meal, go down with a minyan, come back and bench in your spot. And in a case where, okay, this part's not so clear, we'll see, but at least according to this opinion, in a case where you're going to the other spot because you want to eat there and have a better benching, because you're going to do a zimun, then it's okay, even though you didn't have in mind to begin with. But we're going to learn tomorrow that really you should have in mind to begin with. Wonderful day, Eden, and we'll hear Psudas Tevis Kabbaling and Simcha and comfort for the whole community and families and everyone.
Don't we have good news?
And good Ner Shabbos.